Hey, hi
Hi.
everyone.
Hi, welcome
So,
to our special episode.
yes, we are live today as part of a special episode for the Kickstart Your Book Sales podcast, and we will be talking about our last campaign, which was Get Your Book Selling on Kickstarter, compared to our most recent campaign that just ended this Saturday called Go Wide, Grow Wide. And so we'll be talking quite well. So it's going to be a longer episode. It's also going to be more in depth on some of the lessons that we learned, some of the challenges that we had, some of the mistakes we made. Made some pretty big ones that Russell will be like, "I told you, Monica." Um, so I'm excited. So we're excited to talk about that. And Russell, you also just launched a
I
new
did.
campaign today.
Yes, we launched our sort of flagship project aside from the graphic novel side, Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter. We're finishing that up today, and we launched a few hours ago, and we've already raised $4,300. So very exciting, but also
Yay!
terrifying.
All right. So, are you willing to talk about
Yeah,
what's terrifying about it?
sure. So there's a Well, it's less terrifying than other campaigns because I'm not doing more. But anytime you have a like $10,000 goal, it's a lot. Like it's a lot
Hmm.
to raise, and there's a lot that rests on this book. So I think when you're doing a line of publishing, which even though I'm doing my own book, my own I'm doing my own line of publishing. It's a full slate. Like we're between the two of us, we're releasing like 15 or 16 books a year, and I think I'm releasing 8 or 9 or 10 this year. And like when you have when you're a full slate publisher like that, like you have to look at each book, and like each one gets a marketing budget, and each one has to pull its weight for a certain amount of other books that are in the line or a certain amount of the overall budget. And Ichabod, Cthulhu was definitely our one this year that was our big banger. Like we had to raise basically 40 grand
Right.
because we needed all of that money to pay for production on the rest of our line. Because that is another thing that they don't that you that they don't tell you about publishing when you start. It's like today's launch is paying for the next like 4 launches, the next books that are in your production slate. And Ichabod, like this is a $20,000 book, which is I think about like how much we're raising on each book. And like Ichabod is a $20,000 campaign. Cthulhu was a $30,000 campaign. Now we ended up doing 40,000 on that book, which was great. But it ended up costing considerably more as well because we went over. So like basically the 40 grand paid for the deficiency of the second campaign and like this campaign. So it kind of like broke even across the whole series when I looked at the whole series. Uh, and and so this book has to pull a lot of weight because
Hmm.
we're still I'm winding down a lot of our projects this year, and I just picked up a couple of projects, so like it has to basically do 20 grand to pay for what is left in the coffer until our next big launch. And while I'm pretty confident we're going to hit 10, like 20 has been a we've gotten there the last 2 times, but it's been a struggle. Like the last time it was because we did a $3,000 pledge with mentoring, and the time before that, like we had 600 backers, and then we've had like a declining number of backers, and all of those things are kind of the business way. But on the personal side, I've been thinking about this a lot, and like some projects that you're involved with just like become a part of you. Some you make and they're great projects, and like I'm very proud of all the books that we've made, but no, a lot of the projects just wash off of you, and like you don't end up talking about them much after it's done, even though you loved them when they were being made. And then there are others that like sink deep into your soul, and like they become a part of you, or like maybe it was a very a deep part of you that was in the book that was screaming at you when you came when it was coming out. And I've had that with a couple of projects in my life, but like Ichabod is the book that like launched my career. It's the reason why I use Kickstarter. It's the reason why I'm probably sitting here today. And as on a personal level, when you have that kind of raw nerve, and the Godsverse Chronicles is another one, because like it all, but the Gods vs. Chronicles is like, it's not me. Like, I feel like there's just so much of me inside this book that personally I want it to succeed. And because we're ending it, like, I want to send off Ichabod in this format, like, in the best way possible. And that's a little more esoteric, like, writerly side, which, yes, I do have a writerly side too, people that like only know me as a business person. Like, I do care about the books, and I care about the process and all of that stuff. And I think that's the core of being able to do the business side well. But yeah, it's sort of dredges up all of the stuff from like for 12 years, like emotionally dredges up things that new projects just don't. Like, as much as I love something like the Obsidian Spindle Saga, and it does, I think, for all of the books I've launched after I became successful, the one that like is a part of me is the Obsidian Spindle Saga. But like, it's not the part of me that was built before I was successful. Like, it doesn't have the fear of like, not the fear of failure,
Right.
but like that fear that comes with never not having broken through.
Right. No, I totally know that fear as well. And for me, that series is Waters Dark and Deep, because that was like the series I tried to be successful with for years. And it's always had some success, but it's never had the success that I wanted it to. And so, this kind of leads nicely into the topic today, because like we just had a 40,000 plus campaign, which is crazy. Like a year ago, I would have been like, what, like, how is that possible? And I don't know that you thought, well, I'm not saying you didn't think it was possible, but you didn't expect a nonfiction thing that to ever hit 4K. Like, that just wasn't in the plans a year ago either. And so, but like my Waters Dark and Deep campaign that I did right before this one hit 4K. So it's like, it is kind of hard when the universe is saying like, hey, this thing that you're doing that, is, well, it started as a side project, basically, is worth 10x more than the thing that is like on your heart, in like a really deep way. And like, similar to you, like it was on my heart from the beginning. And I've had a lot of success since then, that I know can be brought to the series, but has not happened yet. But it was definitely that series where it's like, yeah, I've not made it yet, and I'm trying to make it with this series. So yeah. So today,
yeah, it's very relatable.
So today we're going to talk about the two nonfiction campaigns, and one of the things we want to do is really talk about some of the lessons that we learned, and then we want to apply it to fiction and we'll talk to Russell about how how this new work that we're doing on Kickstarter is kind of just how you're bringing that to fiction, to the fiction side, with having the full knowledge, where you developed your system based on comics and based on novels, for the most part. And then we kind of like hoped it would work for nonfiction. And now we're learning a bunch of stuff in nonfiction that we can bring back and add to that system. So to give an overview of the two campaigns, the first one, I guess maybe we should bring them up, which I did not set up. So the first one was, it was for a single book. The second one was for 6 books, which was, we have some thoughts on that. Like, maybe don't do that in the future.
Well, I should say that like it was for one book, but and this is how I do most of my comic books, which is there's one book that is the front and center book, but the rest of the series was able to be purchased in the campaign. And so, as opposed to doing what I do on the novel side, which is kind of doing a slate of books. So it was still like, you still could access all of the books in that first campaign. But I definitely think having the one book front and center for nonfiction is just exponentially more helpful than having all of the slate. And it makes me wonder if maybe I'm doing the novel part of this wrong. But what are your thoughts on doing 1 versus doing 6?
I mean, okay, so this is the first campaign. It was this one single book about Kickstarter. The second campaign, as you can see, had the 6 books, which was crazy. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on, especially on the nonfiction side. So, we did the one book that was kind of, well, really, because that's what we had for this campaign. I feel like we only intended to do one book. Like, that's just how we designed it. And so then as we were going along, I was like, oh, well, Russell has had a lot of success doing kind of like this package of books. And so let's try it for nonfiction. So then we did this campaign, and it did work. Like we literally made like nearly double what we made on the last one. So, bottom line is having more books in your campaign is going to increase the amount. But what I think we've seen on both the nonfiction and the fiction side is that it can also decrease backers. And so the reason that we've come up with for that is really just overwhelm. It's just like people have set budgets for things, like they can only spend a certain amount. And if you overwhelm them or like create a package that's too, that's above their budget, a lot of times they'll be like, nope, not doing anything. Like instead of like downgrading themselves, they'll just be like, like I'm out. And so we did, I do think we saw some of that on this campaign where people were like, yeah, I'm just overwhelmed. So I'm not gonna get any of the books because I either can't get all 6 of them, or like 6 is too many for me to begin with.
Yeah, and I think so. I think it's the difference between going after whales and going after like everyone, right? It's like the people that did the Grow Wide campaign, like they looked at it and were like, yes, I'm ready for 15 books, or yes, I'm ready for all of these books. But like there's just far fewer of them than saying, yes, I care about Kickstarter. And I think like watching your marketing also, it was really hard to like focus on any one thing over the course of a week. At least when I have like one series, I can say, this is the series, like it's one thing, and like I'm kind of want someone to buy all 12. But with the Go Wide campaign, it's like, okay, what if you have a really strong problem with Barnes and Noble?
Right.
It's not like a thing that is very easy to like pick out over the course of even a 6-week campaign.
Right. And there are people who, there's not a ton of people who are like, my problem is really with Barnes and Noble. Like a lot of people are like, my problem's with Amazon, or my problem is with going wide or being wide or whatever, like they kind of think of it like wide is still kind of this lump of things that is by its nature like overwhelming to a lot of people. Like we also hear that like people are like, yeah, I maybe should go wide, but it makes me miserable to do so. So even though I should do it, it's just my brain can only handle like Amazon. And so I don't care that it's like detrimental to my career. I just stay on Amazon because that's what I can actually do versus what I should do in a perfect world. And so there was a lot of that like we basically saw in the campaign too.
Well, and just like that is even when you look at all of the books, you're like, yep, that thing I said about wide is absolutely true. You have a really good book, the free book, which is the Get Your Book Selling Wide.
Yeah.
And like it is free, so like it would not have been a thing to focus this campaign on. But like I almost feel like if you put the Get Your Book Selling Wide right here, and then you were like, and because it's like a good survey of everything, and then you're like, and then you could have the support of all of the other books if you want it. But what you really need is this book, which is something that we have been talking about, and because that's how my books work, and and we're kind of seeing that like the way that I have done my nonfiction work is actually like kind of the perfect way to do Kickstarter and conventions, but it's not a good way to do wide or do retailer sales. And so like having a book like How to Become a Successful Author is like, this is your one thing. I have supporting documents that you can get 10 books. But like, if you just want help with the one thing, here's like a survey of everything. And that seems to be how people come to Kickstarter. or
Yeah.
go to like conventions. They want like a solution that just fixes their problem. Whereas because of how the algorithm works and how searching works on online and on Amazon, it's like people want the Barnes and Noble book, and then they'll
Hmm.
go and search the Barnes and Noble book. So it's almost like you have to create the marketing package 2 or 3 times, because you also have to do it for your website, which is different than the other two things.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you saying that, like, I agree. I think if we had done a campaign that was like just on get your book selling wide, or like a single book, because the other thing is, like, if you're reading fiction, you read a great fiction book, you want a sequel to it. If you read a great nonfiction book, you're like, hopefully my problem is solved, or else it wasn't a good nonfiction book,
Right.
and so you're not like, ooh, I just want another one of these books, like another list of things for me to check off. Like, you
Yeah.
just don't want like multiple books. So I mean, especially for nonfiction, I think the single book is probably the focus, even though it, obviously, like, it is kind of hard to say that, because at the end of the day, we had 21,500 on the first campaign with the single book. We had 41,800 with the 6 books. But yeah, so our next campaign, we have decided, we thought about, the other good thing is this campaign we were testing a lot of stuff. So because we didn't know the answers, but after looking at these 2 campaigns, it was very clear we were considering doing an omnibus next time, or like a like a box set again next time. And now we're just like, nope, we want to do a single book. It is get your book selling direct to readers is our next campaign.
And
And
I
it's a
think
solo book.
well, and I think that you can even use almost this exact same image. You just have this book front and center, and that's the one it's going on. But then
Yeah.
behind it, you can show, because we have supported documentation of other books that like
Hmm.
will get your book selling, like the website book.
Yeah.
There's a Kickstarter book.
Kickstarter.
We have
Yeah.
a convention
Patreon.
book. We have all of those
Conventions.
things.
Yeah.
Patreon. Like there's like a supporting documentation behind that thing. But I think that if we do like direct to readers, one book that just says direct to readers, and
Hmm.
then everything else is supporting that like one thing, is a good, to me that feels like a good compromise.
Yeah.
um
Yeah, I think, like, honestly, we could have run this almost exact campaign and just like the one central book, which was get your book selling wide. And I think like there would have been very little to change about the rest of this, and we probably could have done much better, if we had just done that. And when I think about it, so like one of the challenges with the 6 books was like probably the most expensive mistake on this campaign, which is that print was really not pushed, not prominent in any way. Like the first, I would say, like, all the tiers on this campaign, under $100 were digital only. And so there was a build your own bundle tier that people could build. They could get the paperbacks, but that wasn't, like, people didn't realize that, even though it's said like multiple times. So I think it just lost like a ton of people who only back in print. Some of them reached out to me, some of them, and so like the smallest print paperback tier was all 6 books at 125, and that's just like way out of people's budgets. And so, originally with this campaign, I had, you could get like choose. It was basically like a choose any paperback type of thing. One, choose any paperback, choose any 2 paperbacks, choose any 3 paperbacks, and I had that kind of like all the way up to 125. But it was so many tiers. It was like it just added. It was like 20% of the tiers. So then I took it out. I probably, if I were doing this campaign, I probably would have put it in and just changed, because like after the fact, I could not put it in very easily, because I had already said some of the higher tiers included all the previous tiers, and it just, so anyway, that's the one that I'm sure Russell would have. The way you do yours, I know, is that you have those paperback tiers very explicit. And people say like, oh, there's so many tiers on this campaign, but it's important. It works, I think.
Well, and I definitely had someone today say that it's confusing, all the tiers and stuff. Where I'm like, they're like, so if I want 4 books, I go for the 4-book tier, and I'm like, yes, that is an accurate statement. If you want all 4 books of Ichabod, you would pledge at this. If you want less than that, you would pledge at 2-book or 1-book
Right.
combo. And so I do think that like even my campaigns get a little bit confusing because of how much stuff I do. Like I probably should have been like 1 Ichabod, 2 Ichabod, 3 Ichabod, 4 Ichabod. Problem is, like with you as well, like some people have bought 3, like they want 4 books, but they don't want 4 Ichabod. They want like 1 Ichabod and then X, Y, and Z other book. And so you just can't, can't like do quite the same thing when you have all of these books. But yeah, I think that if you did the wide book because what ends up happening when you have all of these kind of disparate books that are in a series, but they really are their own thing, is if you spend a week promoting Apple or even a day promoting Apple, like you're not actually promoting all of the other books. Whereas like if you spend a day promoting Apple and your main offering is wide, then it's like, oh, everything is supporting this one thing. And that's what I think was really effective on our Kickstarter campaign. It's like everything was focused on the Kickstarter. And even when we were talking about the higher tiers, like it came back to, no, the Kickstarter book is the main thing, and then all these supporting documentation, the sprint with us, the other books, the consulting, all that stuff like was focused back on how this can help you on Kickstarter. And because I know, for instance, on the aggressive the next campaign, one of the books we have is how to sell at conventions. And guess what is the absolute worst thing that we ever talk about when it comes to like getting eyeballs? It's conventions. Like anytime I talk about conventions for my whole life, and when we did the convention episodes, they've been the absolute worst attended thing, except for people who do conventions and book signings. So, but like if you have a book that's selling direct to readers and you spend a day or 2 days on conventions, like, okay, that's only one part of the main offering book. And then you can also get this convention book, which people who really love conventions. And one person I reached out to about the next campaign and we're talking was like, are you going to talk about conventions? And I had not brought up conventions at all to this person because like I just never do. And but for this person, that is the thing that they needed. And so for a couple of people, it will convert just the convention book. But like I will bet that when we talk about conventions in the next campaign, it will be the lowest open rate, but might be the highest click-through rate.
Right.
Because someone who opens it really cares about that thing. I think that it's so important to have the focus. And unfortunately for this campaign, the focus was 6 books.
Yeah.
And if you wanted 6 books, awesome, or 10 books. But it's just like so few people are going to want 6 books.
6 books.
And that's
like
the problem with
6 nonfiction books.
and that's the problem with that I have with the Gods vs. Chronicles campaign specifically. But whenever I do a series, it's like, go buy 4 books. Here are 4 books, and here are the 4 characters. And like, I expect you to go buy all 4 books. Now you can buy 1 book if you really want it, but like it's a series, so you really want all the things. And the thing that I think this campaign did well is like what we're most worried about is velocity to market, right? Like we want these books up on retailers, and we're willing to take money off the table of like, we could launch each of these books separately. We could launch them over 6 months. Like we could do next year, just every month is a different book. And like, that means that we have to wait another year and a half to get these books back onto the market. And we want to get it there quickly. And that is the question you're always worried about with these kind of campaigns. It's, do I want to maximize the dollars that I can raise on Kickstarter, or do I want to maximize the amount that I can raise overall by getting these books on retailers and getting ads up to them and being able to like book speaking engagements or whatever on top of all of this stuff? And it's kind of like a 6 of one, half dozen of the other problem that you have.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was a lot of stuff to focus on at once, and I think I think one of the challenges of not having that core thing, or like the core thing of this is really all 6 books, which is $125, which is crazy. And we did sell a lot in digital, I will say that. So like the digital price point, I did like $50 for all the books plus the 2 workbooks at $50. Like that was a great price point. People loved that one. But if you are a paperback person, like you had nothing. That was not. I think that same package in paperback was like $200, and then we discounted it to 180. And during that time, we got more people for like the first couple days in at that tier than we did at the $200 tier for the rest of the campaign. So like it was just. I don't think it was that people didn't want it. I think it was like pricing was just it was just like out of people's budgets at that point. So
Yeah, and you really have to price that way to make any money
right.
on the books. So
Yeah.
I'm sure people listening is being like, well, just price it lower. But like at less than $25 a book, or like $20 a
20,
book,
yeah,
if you're
20.
doing multiple, it's like, it's really tough. It's really hard to be like, okay, well, now I'm paying you to read my books. And like, that's not a good thing either. So
That's
yeah,
not how you do business.
and this is really how all these series campaigns that I've ever seen work. Like they're all almost all of them are like less money, less backers,
Less backers.
hugely more money, because we have to talk about this part. Like, you raised $114 on average per backer. Like,
yeah, that's crazy.
like that is, you very rarely see more than $50, and we did more than double that. And part of that is because of the thing that we had the whole campaign. And so we had 200 less backers, something like that, than the last campaign, but we raised double. So my friend would say, you won, because you have now less to fulfill and made more money. Like that is, my friend thinks that's the win. I'm not confident that's true, because like I want to grow the base, but like that's what he would say. Congratulations, you've only got much less to fulfill. Good for you.
Yeah. And I think like, I mean, these 6 books, so like you said, one is free. There's these 6 books. We've done another one on Kickstarter, which was the Kickstarter one. So we're talking, 8 books out of the series, but like the series has like 18, well, it had 18 books, now it's got like more, and so we're talking like we did have to get through some of these books. Like, we really can't afford to like launch each one individually on here, and we don't have time for it, we don't have energy for it. We think we can probably only do a nonfiction campaign like every 6 months or so at best. For these 3 campaigns, we've had 9 months in between each, so we won't have another campaign for 9 months. But yeah, I think like we did have to expedite to market on this grouping at least. And then in the future, I think we'll have the centerpiece book, and then we'll have the supporting books, which is it's not going to look that much different from this, but there is going to be a stronger focus for because it also ties into this other piece, which is like, you want to be able to hit a really good reason for somebody who's new to you to buy, for somebody who's more like a casual like reader or acquaintance in your audience to buy, and then for your diehards to buy. And I would say like people who were new to the work, like that's where we failed with this, with these 6 books, where it was just like, this is not an entry point for a new person. This is like, this is overwhelming.
So I do think one of the things that we could have done, if I know we're not doing but I think we should have just said explicitly, get your book selling wide for free at this link. And like that should have probably been the thing, because we say grab a sample of the book sales supercharged series here. But if we had just said like, and you can get wide, like just get the wide book, and like we probably could have gotten a lot more people into the funnel of what we want to do. I didn't even literally think about it until you just mentioned that. So like way too late on the campaign. But if we had kind of made that the focus and then brought people down from that into why each one of our books is important, we may have done better. And I don't know if that's true or not, but like, and there's another piece of this where it's like, really, the thing we were selling, in my mind, was the incubator. Like, it wasn't even these books, it was the incubator that we had. I do want to talk about that, because one of these notes is we've now gone through one of the minor bullet points under the first thing. So
let's skip around. Get this.
So I want to talk about dropping the course in, because to me, this is the nonfiction. This is the thing that I don't know how to do in fiction. Like, I don't know how to do, because like, just people value a fiction like Patreon or something just less than like an incubator or something of this. So could you talk about how you kind of wrapped the course into, or how?
So for the first campaign, we very, very, very accidentally built a course. Like, we did not intend to do that. We were not brilliant ahead of time thinking of doing that. We literally were like, we've got to do 10K on this book. And we don't know how to do that. But Russell did actually know some stuff about how to do that, because he was doing it for fiction already, basically trying to figure out how to increase the value stack on a fiction campaign. And so he didn't know what the thing for nonfiction was. Like, neither of us did. I didn't know anything. So, but he wasn't quite sure how it translated to nonfiction, I don't think. But he knew, like, well, we need something at $100. We need something at $250. We need something at whatever, $500. And so he knew, he didn't know what it was, but he knew that we needed that. And so then, and he knew it needed to be good. And so then we were like, okay, what do we do? He's like, normally I do this Q&A thing for the fiction side or whatever. Like, we can do that for this at 50. And then you came up with the idea to do the sprint with us, which was not,
I think it was like pretty late in the process. I think it was pretty late. We were like, I think it was like, so I think we launched in October, and this was like in September. We were still like wrestling with what I think we had the consulting one, because that was the $500 one pretty early. But like, I don't think we had this. It's like, and finally we were just like, what if they just like watch me build the campaign, and like that's worth $100 if they're getting the other stuff. That's like a good topper. And we did not, like, I did not think it was gonna like go gangbusters like that. But
we did not at all. So we put it there, and I think we had either 50 people or 75 70
it was 75 people.
So so 70 75 people. I mean, we can, if you want to verify, not us, but if somebody listening to this wants to verify, you can just go look at the campaign.
Basically everything over 100, just add them all up. And I'm pretty sure we got 80 the last time we launched, and we have about 160 total. So it would have been like 75 the first time, which is a great deal, because like, it's now $500. When we launch it again later this month, it's going to be $800. When we launch it again in November, it's going to be $1,000. So like, these people, by backing early, got like basically 10x the value.
They just got a bunch of they got the course early. They had to deal with us like kind of BSing around with the course and not knowing what we were doing, but
not even knowing it was a course.
Not knowing it was a course, so we didn't understand how to like do anything for it. But then now they have the course, and it's like it's really, really valuable now, and they paid 10% of what the value is. So we did that accidentally last time. This time we did it very purposefully. So we decided, like, you know, the number one thing I hear about WIDE is like, it's overwhelming. So when I was designing this program, and Russell, you know, I don't know how, like, I think at first you were just like, I don't get this program. And I was like, well, it's like one topic a month, because people who are WIDE, they feel overwhelmed, was basically what I had told you. And so that's what the program is. It's, you know, you can do month by, it's 12 months of topics that are core to going WIDE. And each month covers a different topic. And so if you're a WIDE author, you can focus for just a month on, like, I need to optimize my Barnes & Noble stuff across my catalog. Or I need to optimize my Amazon stuff across my catalog, whatever it is. And so you can just focus for that month on it. And so that's what the program is. I think we were kind of confused about, I mean, even though we hit almost 42K on this, we were kind of like, do we even like this program going forward? Not to say, like, obviously the first year we're doing it because we have people signed up. But we were kind of like, are we going to like phase this out eventually? Like, because, we're kind of looking at this like, oh, we only have 360 backers total on the whole campaign. Like, does anybody really like this program versus, Kickstarter? We had just so many people who were excited about it. And so I did do, like, I think at first we were kind of like, eh. And then I did do the numbers and I was like, well, we did get 60 new people signed up to this program through the campaign, which is about on par with what we had last time. And then we also had 20 people from the last campaign who had pledged at a high enough level to where I told them ahead of time, I was like, we're just going to upgrade you to this program that that we're doing all together rather than create like a separate huge thing for that. So for like what they had gotten. So there's those people too. So it is, it is still about like 75 to 80 people again. And I don't know, we'll see how it goes. I think the real test with the Kickstarter stuff was like, do more people want to sign up to this? And so I think we're going to experience that again with this incubator, is like, do more people want to sign up to this beyond the Kickstarter? Like, is the Kickstarter was the foundation, is this like a real and viable thing going forward? So,
and I think that if this is like really just to sell the course, or a lot of it's just to sell the course, like it's actually very effective because there's a lot of like topics, and someone who actually cares about all of these topics and was willing to spend $125 to get all of the books is probably going to get the incubator, or like at least for a couple months they're going to upgrade to that thing. And so in that way, like, it did scare a lot of, I mean, it probably would have scared me off if I didn't know who you were, but like the people that it didn't scare off, like, would, like, they wanted it all, and that includes the incubator part of this. And I think also what we don't see here is when we relaunch this, how many people have said, oh, I'm just going to get the Barnes & Noble one when it relaunches. Like, I'm just going to get the Apple one when it relaunches, because, like, you've got a lot of people. You spent 10 years on retailers exclusively, and or like retailers and direct exclusively, and like you spend less than a year doing Kickstarter. So like you probably have a ton of people who are just like, so this is almost like making 40 grand to advertise this series to a bunch of people who are probably going to buy it on retailers, which is what happened with the Kickstarter book.
Right. Yeah, no. Yeah, exactly. The Kickstarter book was more successful in the aftermath on retailers, and became our most successful book from the series. And that was something that we wanted to see again. And so I do think that once these books go back out onto retailers, I do think a lot more people will even just know about them, maybe be more excited about them. They've never been released in paperback so far. So I think once the paperback comes out, even though people did not back this campaign because of, the paperback situation was kind of messy on this one, I do think that we'll sell a lot more paperbacks, which will be really good. And I'll be curious. I mean, maybe we need to talk about that at some point, just the two of us, and figure out like how can we capitalize on the Kickstarter campaign and like make it make sense for these books to go out.
Yeah,
in those
definitely.
formats.
And it's going to be, I think it's going to be really good, because we just had like 6 weeks where we talked about this stuff, and like there's there's at least 10 times that amount of people in our audiences combined that like are going to buy one of these books. Like they just, I mean, because like they care about, like they know that we know how to teach it. Mm-hmm. And like they have a problem at some point, like even if they don't go wide, like they'll at least get one of the books to say, like they'll at least get this website book, because like they all want to direct sell. So so yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there needs to be a strategy there, but there's, when you have a month and a half where you're just, and it's successfully, I mean, it's $40,000. Like when you're successfully talking about these books, like you have no choice but to talk about them, because it's just looming out there. Like it's live, and like the numbers just sitting there. Like, I think that it can do nothing but do good things, on top of the fact that you made a bunch of money basically marketing the books for the later release. And I do think that once we have all of the books done, the rewriting of all of these books, we'll have to make some decisions about like how we do the like the actual retailer launch. But I think that's always a problem, right? Like that's always like, you know, me and you were having conversations because we're doing a whole bunch of stuff related to the incubator about like my 12 book series that we're launching next year on retailers. And like, it's always a problem when you're like, how do I launch 7 books at 12 books over the course of a year? Like, am I doing this every 2 weeks or every week? Or like, am I dropping the you know, whatever you're doing? But yeah, and you know, you mentioned on the outline, like wide is a broader topic. And like, I don't know if there was a better way to do this campaign, honestly, because like you have to capture the breadth of what you've done. Like, and I don't think that I think we don't like, this is an 18 book series. Like, I don't think people maybe appreciate the breadth of what you like. I've never seen like somebody do 18 books on one topic, especially sales related, like 12 books, 10 books, like process books, yes, but like sales. And we know that there's not anything out there because we've been trying to run ads for it, and it's friggin' impossible because there just is not a thing to like talk to this.
Yes, there's no ads.
Yes, so like it is incredible and bonkers what you have done and what I have done in small part, mostly Monica doing most of these books by herself. And
well, no, you did a third of them.
Well, that's still 66% of them that like wrote by yourself. And like, it's an incredible accomplishment. And if nothing else, like just watching it there, like seeing this image on the screen, it's like, that's like not even, like there's now going to be 21 or 22 books. Like that's barely 25% of the books in this series. And like, that is a mind-blowing thing that like will be beneficial for 20 years. Like these things are just going to be like, you know, and I think spending a month and a half talking to influential people and people in the book community at like this crazy thing that you did and that we did together is like also good when it launches on retailers, because it will give people a reason to like come back and, I don't know, affiliate for like the like, you know, just put in their newsletter with like affiliate options or something like that. And it just like, it sets you and us apart from the rest of the community who is not talking about the scope of an author career in this level. Like they may talk about Patreon, or they may talk about websites. They may talk about direct sales, but like they're not talking about literally any topic that you have. And in future years, as people start to understand that like they have to treat themselves as a business more than they ever have before, I think it's going to be more valuable every year. And we're just going to be able to like keep like reaping
milking the cow.
Exactly.
No, I do think like, you know, we're a little ahead of our time on this series. I think that's what some of the work that we've been doing on it has shown me. So like last year when the series was coming out, we were way ahead of the time. Even last year, I remember we tried to talk about Kickstarter, and there was so many people who were like, you two are really dumb. Like, you two are idiots. Like, Kickstarter will never be good for publishing. You're selling snake oil. Like, just so many things. And we've now proven, as of today, actually, you told me this, I think, before we were on the call, but
we've raised $700,000 from creators and experts in our group since last November. So not even a year. And I think we're at $712,000.
$712,000. That's new dollars in the publishing community from our group of 150 plus people in our paid program. So it's not counting all the people outside of it who, you know, have maybe read our book or maybe been influenced by our work in some way, even if it was, you know, through like seeing other people's campaigns go or whatever.
Yes. And I know there are whole groups on Facebook that were inspired by like our book that exists
Right.
that we don't consider. And frankly, there's probably a ton of campaigns that have launched in that group that just like no one ever said that they launched. These are only like trackable
Mhm.
statistics that we have. So, I mean, yes, as you mentioned, like that's 700,000 new dollars in the publishing community that probably would not exist like if they were
Right.
using another platform. And
Yeah.
like we're just going to keep going with it. Like we're just gonna keep going
Mhm.
with it like over. And I do think also, again, having these discrete things where you're like, this is 6 weeks, so please, friend or influential person, tweet this out one time or have us
Mhm.
on your podcast because there's a reason now to have this discrete experience is like really helpful. Like it's helpful for the brand overall. If you're even if you're not raising $40,000, even if you're raising $4,000, like just having this thing, we're saying, well, why are like I will not come back to you every month for more promotion because this is a discrete incident, and once it is done, like it is done. And it's
Yes.
also a thing that's like, and it will give excitement to your fans because like it's a discrete event that hopefully we can help them with.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I am also finding myself like so a couple of things. One is I agree. This is I mean this series is, this is kind of like our foundation for the next like 5 years at least, like possibly longer is this series. Like we're not going to right now we are going to write some more books because we agreed to do that through this campaign. But like, at some point we're going to be like, okay, there's 25 books in this series. We don't need another book. We just need to promote the books we have. You always hit that point in your career, or like, like we're past that point in our career. Actually, either of us are past that point already. But with this series, at some point, it's just going to be like, let's just promote this more.
Right.
And, we have so many ways to promote it. I think that it's going to be like a huge, huge series in, 3 to 5 years, like bigger than it is now, which is already a decent sized series. So,
Yeah. And so let's we talked about kind of wide as a broader topic than like
mm-hmm.
just Kickstarter. You want to talk about pre-launch. So
Sure.
I would like you to talk about how you changed from pre-launch from one campaign to the next, because I'm very proud of how you made this change.
Yes. So the last time we just threw up the pre-launch page a week ahead of
2
time, and
days. No, it was 2 or 3 days. It was like Thursday and we were launching on Tuesday because I remember
yeah.
like the ulcers were growing in my
Yeah, I like really like almost killed Russell during our first campaign.
But we
Just
had
like
150 almost people, right? We had like a
yeah,
lot of people that
we
like
did. So we ended that pre-launch page at 179 last time, or 175 or something like that. But it was around that on the first campaign that we did for just the Kickstarter book. And so the second campaign that we did, we were at about 279. So we had an extra 100 backers. I had hoped we would get more backers than that, but I think, you look at the backer numbers and these are the things you don't know before you launch. You just don't. But like I could tell, like we only got 100 more backers. So, and like we just hit a point. So anyway, the pre-launch couple days last time, a whole month plus this time, really worked on those numbers. The numbers were better, but I think even at the beginning, it was indicative of where this launch would end up in terms of backers, and that it was not going to do as well. Because last time we really did, we did almost nothing to get those 150 plus backers last time. And this time it was like, we just were not pushing above the 270. And then throughout the campaign, I think we only got to like 400 backers total following the campaign by the end of the campaign
you
at
mean
6
followers
weeks.
total, right?
400 followers total, right? And on our other one, we had like 600, or I'm not sure how many.
Yeah, so I want to go to something that you said that was really important to me, which is you were tracking kind of I'm going to use the word velocity, but like the velocity
mm-hmm.
of people backing to predict
Yes.
how your campaign was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a thing that I don't think we've ever talked about it before. We've talked about like how to that it's important to judge like the pre-launch to get a certain amount of it, but also just the speed at which you can acquire like those followers
Mm-hmm.
will do a lot to show you how you will do when you launch. Because if a lot of people are excited when you first announce it, that once it actually drops on Kickstarter and there's brand new eyes, there's new eyes who do not know you or have not seen your campaign, like the faster you can get those backers, the more velocity you will have with those other backers as well. So like if it takes you 6 weeks to get 25 backers, you're like, oh, maybe I should only do a 10-day campaign, or maybe I should do a 50-day campaign because I need to make this amount of money. But the reason why you really need all of that time, that month, is to get followers for sure. But it's really also to judge how fast you will fund, how many backers you will get. Like there's so many other pieces that happen in that month that aren't just like, oh, I ended up with 48 backers. Well, if you only send one update, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
If you sent 25 updates and got 40 backers, like that's probably not great. You probably need to make a big change in your campaign imagery or just like something to get people excited. And that honestly bears out. We have seen this. I've seen this so many times in our group, and like it almost always bears out where someone is struggling to get like people following them, and then they struggle in the campaign. Even if they end up with like 50 or 60 backers, those people that struggle for a month to get those 60 followers versus the people that like only send one email and get those 50 followers, like the amount of money they end up raising at the end is vastly different.
Right. Yeah. I just fully agree with that. So that was definitely something I was tracking. And then at the beginning of the campaign, the first couple weeks, I was just one of our friends launched a campaign too at the same time, and like I was looking at her backer numbers as well, and you could see that she was acquiring backers like her, but like the project specifically was acquiring backers faster than this campaign. And so that was a campaign where like she probably could have extended it a couple days or like a week or something and made another 5 to 10 grand. Because like you could just see how her campaign was like, it was just hitting all the points, and like it was a really well done campaign. And like it kind of showed me how this campaign was like straggling or lagging to some extent. I mean it was going at its own velocity. Like it wasn't a comparison thing, but it was very much like, if there had been a way to end the campaign earlier, like I might have, because it was like, well, we don't really need all this time because it's not going gangbusters in the middle, and it's not like attracting, it's not attracting at the same pace that a campaign that's like a very similar comp is doing.
Yes. So, and on top of that, we were everywhere during that Kickstarter campaign. Like that 6 weeks, like we must have spent 4 or 5 hours on Slack, like talking about the next promotions, how we can get on different things. And like we used those 6 weeks, like we used them to like, we did lives, like it was exhausting. And this campaign, we just didn't do that. So I do wonder, like, if we just couldn't, like there was no way that I could run this Ichabod campaign and then also do what we did for the previous thing, especially after we just basically spent a month and a half doing nothing but launching, and we have another one. It just was not possible. But part of the reason why you do the long campaign is, I mean, Monica, I think you said you partially do it just so you don't have to have that much stress on any one day. But it also is like, well, this went really well the first week. How do we like get in there and do it? And if you're doing that, it's still exhausting, but like you're doing stuff. Or you've got like 5 weeks left and you're like, well, I'm probably going to send like 5 more updates and maybe do 2 lives. And that's, I don't know, remember exactly what she did, but like it was significantly less. Getting up every day and being like, oh, it's just this albatross hanging over my neck now that had like one new backer. Cool. And not having the energy to do like the promotion for it. Like, I don't know, like, was that part of did that factor in at all?
Yeah, so it was interesting because this was something that actually worked really well on this campaign that I also stole from your fiction campaign, which was there was some reason I was supposed to launch on July 5th, and there was some reason that I didn't. I don't quite remember what it was. But I was like, okay, July 5th, day after a major holiday in the US. July 1st, day before the weekend, which was a Friday. So we're talking Friday and Tuesday that are like on the ends of the July 4th weekend. And I was like, well, I'm just going to launch on July 1st. And so what that ended up doing is it meant that I had extended the launch week to like 9 days as opposed to 5 days, which is what would have happened if I had launched on Tuesday. And so that actually worked really well. The momentum stayed, like it started over the weekend, and like I got to kind of like the official launch was still on the weekend, but it was like when, the July 4th weekend settled, like we were already at like 20K. And that felt really, really good to be like, okay, I'm starting like the first real week of this campaign. I'm already up 20K. And so the first 9 days or so of the campaign were great. And momentum was holding through that, first week on Saturday. Then for like the next 2 weeks, it was like dead. And I think a lot of it is like, it's a long campaign. So 6 weeks. I think a lot of it is like the people who were excited had backed already, and the people who were not excited had like they didn't have a deadline. Like they were like, this isn't even end for like a month. Like
right.
like there's still like a month left on this thing. So they just weren't like backing during that period. And so I would say like if it weren't 6 books, which is why it was 6 weeks. If it were not that, then I would say like 4 weeks would have been stronger, because at some point in like after the halfway point, so like weeks 4, 5, and 6, the campaign just picked up again, and it was all good. Like that was another. I think it was like the first 25K came in during that extended first week. The next 5K came in weeks 2 and 3. So it was just the slowest climb to 30K. And then the next 12K came in the last 3 weeks. So it was I think if I could have cut out the weeks 2 and 3, I think that would have been great and like optimal.
And we talk about this not even with this campaign or a 6-week campaign, right, but we've seen people in the group, once their campaign is over and they've done like 24 days, 20 days, like this is too much. Like that's why I'm like, that's why a 14 to 17 day campaign is great for most people, because like it's a slog. It's a slog for even 2 weeks, but like there's that time in the middle that you're like, oh, I'm not making any money. I just got this out. No matter what I'm doing, like I'm grasping, I made like $5 today or $3 today. Yeah. And like I've done 25. This is my 25th launch I'm doing right now, I think. And like it's always the same problem in the middle where you're like, do I have enough stuff that I can bring new people in every week? And for this Ichabod campaign, like I'm going all out. Like I hired a PR agency, like I'm doing a ton of like stuff. I have a ton of cross promotion. Like I've been messaging people even this morning about backer swaps. Like I'm just doing so many things that throughout every week, there's still reasons for me to have it like 4.5 or 5 weeks or something like that I have it. But like, if I didn't have all of that stuff, like I would have cut it. I would have cut it shorter, because it's those middle weeks. And you have to think like, so $5,000 is a lot to get in, like, that's most people's campaign.
Right. In 2 weeks. Sure.
But like, so like, if you need that $5,000, then yes, with the Cthulhu campaign, like, I extended it for a longer period of time because I was like, oh, we need to make like 30 grand, and we barely made 30 grand last time in 2 weeks. So like, I'm going to extend it out to like 38 days, 2 additional weeks to try and make that same amount of money. You ended up like crushing that goal and more. But we needed all of that time to have the same backers. So part of it is like, and I had a lot more stuff I was doing every week and a lot more people to promote. So a lot of this, like, do you have the energy to bring people in every week? Because like every time you do a podcast, you're like, okay, that's brand new people that are going to come. They'll at least follow or back or something. Some event will happen, even if even if there's not another backer. Like, hey, a podcast will have launched, and that's also good for me. And then you have like, but if you don't have that, you're just like, oh, cool, I've woken up 4 days and we've made $20 in those 4 days. And like, I don't like this feeling. So yeah, like having really you have to think like, okay, I'm going to make a little bit of money in that middle, unless I can bring more people in constantly from different sources. And is it worth having those middle days and like my mental health waning? Because it will, Monica, you're right.
Yeah, it does.
Like, hey, you said you raised $25,000 in like the first week, or 2 weeks or something like that. And like, even after 25 grand, even making 5 grand, you're so like, there's just not a way for your mental state to not wane in those middle weeks. So is it worth it to make a little bit of more money or a lot bit more money because you have things coming in, or do you want to save your mental health, which to me is worth 5 grand for 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I could do it over again, so like for some reason, so this could have been a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I was like, I know that when we get to weeks 4, 5, and 6, just the fact that the campaign is ending is going to help the campaign. So like, I did know that. So I think for weeks 2 and 3, what I probably would have done differently, if I were doing a 6-week campaign again, which makes me want to throw up right now to think about, but I don't think I'm going to be doing one of these for a while. But like, if I were doing it again, I think I would have stacked like a lot of promotion, just getting the campaign out to new people during those 2 weeks, and just like have scheduled that ahead of time. Because like, I mean, I knew like rounding the corner, it would have like once we got past the 50% mark, I knew it was going to pick up again, and it did. It raised about half of what we raised at the beginning in that first week. So like, it raised another half to add into that pot. So yeah, it was a lot. I think like, like Russell said, like we didn't push this campaign as much. We're both very tired. You had a campaign like a couple days after this campaign ended, and I had a campaign that ended the day before this campaign started. And so I just think, like you do what you can accomplish at some point.
And you also, the last campaign, your weekly bonuses were unsustainable. Like they were way too good. Like, and their ones for this campaign were good, but they were not. Like, it wasn't a full hour webinar with questions and answers like after that for 6 weeks. So I think probably what I would say for next time is like, hey, if we can't do a lot, like let's just, like you said, like make the middle 2 weeks just like too good to pass up. Like something that is just like incredibly exciting for people that like will get people to stick. And also like, they'll be like, okay, this is the thing that comes in. Like, because I think in the middle, you're just like, I'm going to put any promotion in there and like, it'll be fine. But like, you really need like the best promotions in the middle 2 weeks, or like the dead zone weeks before things pick up again.
Yeah.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about challenges. Do you want to cover more stuff about challenges? We talked a lot about overwhelm, but we didn't talk about resistance. Want to talk a little bit about resistance?
Yeah, I mean, so what I found is like the resistance to this campaign was the same as the resistance that people have to wide in general. So like we talked about the overwhelm piece, but the resistance is that like these books make people feel bad about themselves. Like that is what it is. Like these books specifically trigger people, and that's probably true for most nonfiction. But for this, like, and this was something I knew going in. It's something I should have been smarter about going in. But you know, your nonfiction book is going to trigger people because it is triggering the problem that they have that they maybe are not ready to solve. They're maybe not ready to acknowledge the problem. They're maybe not ready to solve the problem. They're maybe overwhelmed by, you know, solving the problem, whatever it is. And so that is something specific to nonfiction that you have to move through with your audience. And I don't know how much I did that. You know, at some point, like, I just could not get people excited about this. Like,
yeah. So it's interesting because I think the Kickstarter book was like, Kickstarter is novel enough in the community that people were like, oh, I haven't been nagged about this for like 5 years. Whereas like with these books, and it's not Monica that's nagging, it's just like being wide nags at people overall. A lot of them have tried it and failed. Tried it and failed a second or third time. And like there's such like bad will over like doing this because people have been trained to do it wrong, or they've just done it wrong, or like they went back into KU too quickly, or they've watched their KU numbers drop and they know they need to. So it's like this bitter pill that like Kickstarter was not. Like very few people had tried Kickstarter, and a lot of those who did had successful ones, and maybe they didn't want to go back to it, but it wasn't this like I spent 6 months trying to go wide and like it failed and now so yeah, I totally get that. And like I think the next one that we do is going to have more of the novel effect also, because like I think people like, you don't have to give up, and that's another thing that like you have to give up KU to go wide.
Huge problem.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
No, I said you don't have to give up KU to go into Kickstarter. You don't have to give up KU to go direct. You do have to. Like they are two diametrically opposed things, wide versus KU.
They are. Yeah. And so there were actually, like, we did try to fix some of that. So there were actually the first or the middle 2 weeks, weeks 2 and 3, added some new, you know, goalposts, because that's the other thing is like you can create your campaign, especially a longer one, create the campaign for your most ardent fans first, and then you can rewrite it in weeks 2, weeks 3, and so on to change the focus of it. And so I actually did that on this campaign, where week 2 and 3, my whole goal was just to really handle this resistance and just to say, like, you should still be part of this campaign, even if you are KU, because there's a book on just Amazon in it that addresses lots of stuff that you can still use in KU. And then same with the website stuff. So that was something that we did do kind of well, which is that, you know, I had the 6 weeks and I was like, let me put Amazon at week 2. I'll put direct sales or like the website book at week 5, because I know then that I at least have 2 touch points where I can try to convince KU authors to be a part of this campaign, even though. And so then we did even a couple other things, like you know, we talked about like, oh, are you wide in audiobook, for example? That was one of our things. Are you wide in print? Like, are you wide in translations? Just giving people a reason to say, like, look, if you're in print, audiobook, or translations, you can still use this book about Barnes & Noble. Or, you know, and just talking through some of that stuff with people. And it definitely, I do think it helped. It wasn't like as big as I wanted it to be, but it definitely helped and worked.
Yeah. And I think you do have to kind of come into it. So I think the thing that I'm getting out of this whole long thing is like, you really have to go into it with like the limitations of your book. And so I can talk a little bit about Ichabod at this point, because there's a lot of limitations on Ichabod. Like Ichabod is not, he is not on page LGBTQ. He's not, which is a big thing on Kickstarter. He's not POC. He's not a hot blonde, a naked woman who kicks ass. Like, he's not aspirational at all. Like, he is.
He's not happy, right?
Yeah, he's not. Well, it's not even that he's not happy. Like, he gets his ass kicked the whole book. Like, the whole book. Like, he just like a whole book of him constantly failing. and when he wins ugly, and the wins don't last very long. It's like, it's not a book that like Katrina, like that book is like, that's an aspirational book. Like that hits a lot of the things. Like she is LGBTQ on the page. All the characters pretty much are on the page, which is very different than just like Rawlings it. There are a very diverse set of characters in the Godsverse Chronicles. Like the characters are generally attractive in the Godsverse Chronicles. Like they do kick ass. Like they do it very succinctly and like with a lot of style a lot of the time. And like those are books that have just a higher like barrier. And like they're books where there's a clear winner in the end, and the winner is the good guy. And like Ichabod is also not a good guy traditionally. Like he's just not like and also it's not done in a style that is particularly like popular in the indie comic scene or in the comic scene.
The artwork, you mean?
Yes, it's like done in a much more like manga or indie comic. Like a big inspiration was indie comics, like underground comics from the early 2000s. And like, so that is the style that we use. And so there are all sorts of limitations in who is going to come to Ichabod and back it. And I think that I hit that 2 years ago. Just the max number of, I'd spent 10 years building 14 to 19. So kind of 6 years building this like fandom of Ichabod that grew over time. But then it like capped. It capped, and like the people that love it truly love it. And like I even did the thing where like new backers, there was like 298 new backers to volume 2 and returning backers to volume 2 and 380 for volume 3. So almost the same number, except the returning backers was like half. So the first one had the volume 2 had 611 backers, and the volume 3 had 475. So that's almost all of that came from like new people. And I am of the belief that like, because of all of those limiting factors, Ichabod is the kind of book that people either love desperately or they want nothing to do with it all. It's also very, very violent, like, and not pretty violent either. It's it's violent in a way that is viscerally disturbing to many people. And so all of those things are the limitations that the book has. Now, that doesn't mean you don't go out and find people, but it does mean like, you know, when my friend raises $60,000 for his book about a fantasy book about a naked elf woman, goddess, blonde, like who like very stylistically kills people in like this very beautiful and pretty way, like, and that book does $60,000, like there's a cap of like it's a different cap, like, and I talk about this book all the time, and we've talked about it as like you hit literally every check mark. Like every check mark of like what is popular on Kickstarter, like that, like you have it in this book. And he's like, yeah, like he's like, I didn't really plan it that way, but like it ended up being that kind of thing. Like you just can look at it. Like my other friend, so the two ways to get really successful on Kickstarter are collector markets or like boobs or both. Like those are the two kind of paths to massive like overfunding success on Kickstarter, and better to have both. And so because Ichabod doesn't have that, when I look at my campaign and I'm like, oh, you know, have 100 backers and we raised like $4,500, but like my friend who launched today is like well over 10 grand with like double the backers at the same time. I'm like, but like I have limitations, like, and you have to go in with the limitations that are clear-sighted and say, it's not going to raise $40,000 because it's not Cthulhu's Harvest Spell. It's not an anthology project. It's not, doesn't have 70 people pushing it. It just will not do the same thing. And like, you can be bummed out by it, but you also have to just like fully accept that if you launch a novel on Kickstarter, it's probably not going to have more than a couple hundred backers, maybe 300-400 backers. It's just the kind of cap for most books on Kickstarter. Because most people are retailer exclusive and most people are not super fans of your work that are going to go on every platform. So knowing that, eyes open, like, and then being able to work around that, like trying to find workarounds for that, and ways to talk about it differently is to like get past those limiting beliefs is going to get you a whole lot further than just saying, well, my book's going to get 1,000 backers, like not having the same, like not having that same open-eyedness.
Right. Yeah, and I think that was it was definitely in play for these two campaigns because I was very much like, we had already hit 21,500 on the last campaign, so I was like, we got to at least hit that on this campaign. So I definitely wanted to stack the value higher, and like I wanted to give it the best chance it could have to get there. And I think really the only, like, the value stack was great for the campaign. I think the only place that the campaign kind of underperformed was in backer numbers. Very important place, of course, but it was really the only place it underperformed. And so, like, looking at the next campaign that we're doing, for in this, it's really like this three-part campaign, almost like very similar to Ichabod or Cthulhu. So like the next one, I don't feel that same pressure to like show that it wasn't a fluke, because I think we've like finally, well, I mean, probably nobody was thinking about this anyway, but I was thinking about it. I was like, I don't want to be a fluke on here. So this next campaign, like, we don't know if it's really going to have like the 40K, stardust on it, because it's going to be, we're kind of going back to like that more simpler campaign structure of like a single book and like, more of like an experimental offer. But that's okay. Like we'll see what the cap is on it.
Yeah, and we'll see. And also what I'm really excited for is like we now kind of have a system for all of Kickstarter, but like we've now kind of proven out the pilot program, the book to pilot program consulting like stack that is specific to nonfiction authors. And like, I don't know if every author should take our Kickstarter course. Like, I think that every fantasy author should, and every sci-fi author should, and like a lot of romance authors and thriller authors should, because there needs to be more of them on the platform.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I am very confident every single nonfiction author who has ever or will ever write a book should take our course, because the ones that do the best, the ones that are doing 20 grand, and like pretty much every nonfiction author has raised at close to 10,000, and many of them have raised 20,000 or more. Some of them multiple times in the past year have done this. And I just like, we have now proven out, to me, like, if I were to, like, we could make another thing just for nonfiction authors and say, this is the stack for nonfiction authors that you need. And it starts with like having a course offer, and then like betaing it, and then X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to tell you the whole system, because like that's the thing. But like we now have shown that like even with 350 backers as a nonfiction author, like you can make $40,000. Like, will you?
Yeah.
Probably. Well, I mean, I don't know. Like that depends on the stack, but like you absolutely can do that if you if you play your cards right. And definitely you can do 20,000 on one book, because we have now seen that happen 4 times in the past 9 months.
Right. Yeah, and it's hard because like the people that we've seen happen to are like very close to us within our network too. So it's not like they just took the program. Like they are, like, they know us, they're friends with us, they have more of our behind the scenes just from like, being in our like just because we're friends too. So I do think that that's also part of that success, and like they've built their audiences. So that's another big piece. But yeah, I do think, I don't know if it's in the next year. I don't know if it's going to be us. I don't know if it's going to be somebody else that just is smart enough to work with us. But somebody in our program is going to hit 100K or more on a nonfiction project in the next year, probably, maybe 2 years max. But it's going to be somebody. And so, like, if you are doing nonfiction, come work with us, because we, even, I mean, like so the stack that we had for this campaign, if the topic was not wide and like so many people like didn't have like the level of resistance that I do think it had, I mean, I think this exact campaign could have hit 100K with either like more audience, if we had a bigger audience, or like if it was a topic that wasn't kind of like so really like so triggering to people, because I think that is what it came down to, is that like it's not a fun topic. Like there's nothing fun about it
Like we've
compared to
already had
like
people.
Kickstarter.
Well, like we've already had
And
people
direct
reach
sales.
out to us and say like, "Hey, we've only talked about our direct sales book like to very few people, and people have already reached out and said, "Can we interview you? Like, when are you going to do this?" Like, it wasn't like that with Wide. Like, people were like, "Thank you. This is a dead topic," or whatever the thing is. But like, people are excited enough that like there's a not insubstantial chance that it could hit like that amount, or like 50 grand or something like that, because we know what we're doing, and probably will not. Like, I'm not gonna like I've only done 40 grand twice this year, but like it's possible. Like I absolutely think that if you were a 100% of sci-fi, fantasy, and nonfiction authors should all take this course, buy our book, and do Kickstarter, because there have just been so many successes that we've seen in those communities. We are still working on romance, and we have a lot of things planned for romance and thriller authors that are really cool, that I think you should also take our program, because the big problem with those two audiences is not the system. It's just the people that are on there, like buying and doing campaigns. So like the only thing that is stopping those two campaigns from doing gangbusters, and we've seen one do $1 million. It's probably live right now, as you look at it. Like, it's probably raised over $1 million right now, because it raised $300,000 in the first day. But like, getting more people doing campaigns more often in those categories will make it successful enough that I will say that 100% of the time for those two categories, if we can get more people in there. So, So yeah. All right. So we're getting close to the end. You have three audiences with a grade. So do you want to just go through? You're new to your work, your casual readers, and your hardcore audiences. How do you think you went with all three of those?
Yeah, so new to work. I mean, we kind of talked about this one. I gave us I guess I'm probably a really harsh grader, because like it was like a $41,800 campaign. So, and it is our most successful campaign, either of us. But I gave us a C minus, and I think it's just because the campaign was too overwhelming to appeal to new readers. That said, I think it was about 60% of people had not backed the last campaign. That doesn't mean they were new to our audience, but it means that they weren't a part of the last campaign. And so that was interesting to see too. There was about like a 30% crossover or so between the campaigns, which I thought was pretty high, actually. So the casual readers gave the B+. I think that comes down to it really comes down to the print side. I feel like I just feel like we lost so many people because the print options were just not prominent, not easy to say yes to, too pricey for people. And then the hardcore audience, I gave us a B-. So like these are people that like they're in our diehards. Our diehards, not just our diehards together, but like I've been doing like a lot of wide stuff for years, and I don't feel like I gave people a good reason, like diehard wide people, a good reason to get in on this campaign. And so go ahead. What do you think?
Because this is like your thing. Like, this is not like you're a admin or moderator for Wide for the Win. Like, you're a Wide, like you did like 5 talks on Wide last year.
Which is like Wide for the Win is like a 12,500 person group. Okay. Like our Kickstarter group is like less than 500 people. So you look at those two things, you would think Wide is bigger, but
and just the amount of work, like of all of the pieces of the system that we have, like Kickstarter was like more mine than yours. Like Wide though is definitely more yours than mine, and we're cross-pollinating those things to make it like one thing. But like I was surprised at like the number of backers who came in because of how much work. Even I just watched you do it 20 books. Even if I didn't know anything else of what you did with Wide before then, like you did 5 talks on Wide last year like you were the Wide expert, like the Wide expert at that show.
Yeah,
And
like
so I really thought you were going to get more of the hardcore people.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the reason, so some of it was because the books were not new. So a lot of people had them already that were diehards, probably a couple hundred people. And those people, I told, like, they were messaging me. They're like, I want to back your campaign, but like, why should I? Like, I already have the books. Like, what should I back at? And I was like, given what you're telling me, like, I can't say you should back this campaign because there's nothing, like, I don't have anything else to offer you. Like, you've already got the books, you're already signed up for the incubator, because we did have 20 plus people who were in the incubator before going into this. And I was like, yeah, I don't really have anything else. So we did the workbooks. This was something we were also testing for the direct sales campaign, because we were testing, like, could we just do a workbook? And I was kind of like, I don't know, Russell, like, my workbook that I did for novel writing prep had underperformed on retailers, but we wanted to test it again. And I would say, like, the workbooks, I wouldn't say they underperformed to my expectations, but I would say I would not do a workbook for nonfiction, at least, like,
it's an
at this
escalator,
time.
not it's like
It's
how
like
I
an
do
upgrade.
pins. It's
Right,
like,
right.
I do a pin as an upgrade, but like you
Yeah.
do a workbook as an upgrade, and that seems to be the way to do it.
Right. Yeah. So we kind of the same thing, like, could not really get the diehards excited about the workbook. You're either a workbook person or you aren't. So
Yeah.
they were happy with just the books. So that was kind of a thing where I was like, this could probably have at least 100 more people for that if these were brand new books. And they weren't. And so that's important to remember.
Which is something about the Kickstarter book, is it also was like completely brand new. So, and even though you were doubling the size of the books and all of this stuff, like,
right.
Yeah, no, I get it. And this person says the tracks got confusing, and the problem with having a bunch of stuff is, like, it does get like I get emails every time that I'm doing this, like, this is confusing, and I'm like, I don't know how to make it less confusing. Like, it's 7 books, it's 100 books, like, whatever it is, like, it's a confusing thing to do. So I do think I do think that if you had just made the beginning as like a part of your, because what we teach is like the beginning of your, that the top where you're giving a sample should be like the beginning of a funnel to get people through. If we had just said, get our most popular book, go get your book selling wide for free, and you made that like a centerpiece of what you were trying to do in the middle weeks, especially, probably would have done like a lot better with probably would have at least gotten a straight C. Or maybe a C+,
Yeah, I agree with that. The other thing about the new to the work, so, like, I did not do a video. I actually did do a video, and I just didn't like it, so I never posted it. And then after a while, I was like, I'm not going to do a video for this, but did not do the video. That should have helped. Did not pull the reviews from Get Your Book Selling Wide and put them in the campaign. That should have helped a lot. So I think, like, I really neglected the new to the work audience to begin with. I kind of just wrote on like my name, our names to like fund this campaign. And to some extent it worked. 41,800, like, it did work, but it's also like, there are tons of people who don't know who Monica Leonel is and don't know, like, that she does like wide books or whatever. Like, that, like, it's crazy. Like, no matter how big you are in your niche, it's crazy to think that everybody knows who you are. Like, I spoke at I think it was Brian. It was Brian's thing. Just like this weekend. I don't know why I'm like struggling with these details. Just craziness. But yeah, I spoke at one of his events this weekend, and like, I didn't know any of the people in the audience. Like, none of them were people that are in my audience. I didn't know any of them. Our audiences, for whatever reason, don't really, at least the audience of the people he had at this, like, they were all new to me, and I had not put in a slide about like who I was because I'm so used to like speaking to the indie author community, and they're like, we know who you are, Monica. Like, you don't need to tell us like over and over again about your MBA and like all this crap. So I had not put that in there. And, you know, these were all people who I should have like been able to sell to better, or been able to like, not, I don't mean sell like a thing to, but been able to like bring into my audience better. And I just failed. Like I didn't do it very well. And so I think that was really prominent on this campaign in particular.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that, like, so to bring this back to the Ichabod campaign for a minute, is just like I feel that way. It's been 12 years. I'm like, really? Like, you don't know this book? Like, not just like because it's been around for a long time, but like I am very loud and aggressive and in your face. And I know a ton of indie comic people. And like, I just am like, but still, there's so many people that don't know you and I've been on Kickstarter specifically for so long that I'm like, how do you not at least, and I cross promote with people like crazy, but it's true. Like, you have to go into everything, like, or you have to say, and I ask people this all of the time when they're putting their stuff up in our group for critique. I'm like, is this for new people or people that know you? And if they say both, or I'll say you have to do a video. You have to like do these things. You have, like, I don't know what this series is, and I've said this at least once a month, where I'm like, I do not know what this series is. I have no clue. I read this whole thing. I have no idea what, and like, is that okay? And maybe it's okay. Like, maybe I've run campaigns. I ran a campaign for a book called How Not to Invade Earth, which was 5 days. And I did it for 5 days because I specifically did not want anyone sharing it. I did not want people to have this be the entryway into me. I did not want them to see this and be like, oh, this is what Russell does. It was a specific campaign for fans of my work who wanted more of my work. And like, I didn't tell people that it was coming. Like, I just dropped it. People afterwards were like, well, you didn't do any promotion. This is so weird. I'm like, no, it's not. I started on a Tuesday, ended on and like, if you know the rest of my work, I love this book and fans of my work love it.
I love that book too. I think it's so fun.
But like, this is the art style, like, and like, this is not indicative of my work. It's my art. Like, I drew this book, and like,
that's why I love it.
As a fan or a friend of mine, like, yes, that makes complete sense why you would buy the book and like it. But like, some random human who just is like, this is what Russell Mulvey's about. No, maybe they've heard about me in general and been like, whoa, like I did not want. So like, you can have campaigns that are just like fan-centric campaigns. I would say don't have them for 6 weeks, because 6 weeks are really for campaigns where you want like really big people. Like, you want to have the most amount of people possible. But like, it is okay to have a campaign that has no video. I didn't do a video for either of my novel campaigns this year. But I did it for my two comic campaigns. So you can have that. Anyway, the long and the short of it is you can make a campaign that's just for fans only, but you have to kind of know that going in. And if you don't want it to be just for fans, you have to do certain things you may not want to do, like record a video or like book podcast appearances on a bunch of places, or like today I have 2 podcast appearances after this. So like I'm doing a live stream for like fans of our work already and people that like know it, but then I'm going out on 2 places I've never been before to talk about my comic, because I want to bring new people into because this is like the last chance for Ichabod to get like really new fans for a while. So yeah, I think you're right probably about the new to work. I think you're wrong about the hardcore audience, because you already had the books out. You can't ding yourself for a thing that existed already. That was like a limitation of your thing.
I agree with that.
You know, we probably could have as a group been better about talking about the incubator and getting people like into the incubator part of this. But I think we both were just so burnt out that like, because we had just, if you don't know, like all of April and most of May, we spent launching this thing that we did not think would exist. And then we will put 2 more launches for it the rest of this year into a year that was already super busy.
Yeah.
And so we just needed to not, But I think that the hardcore audience was less like because of those limitations, and more just because like they already had the thing. They had already signed up for the incubator. They had already done and like honestly, I would give you way higher than a B- on that, because
well, thank you, Russell.
Because like, there are factors outside of your control, like,
right,
and also those
sure.
people already bought your book, so like, cool,
they did.
like that's actually like awesome. You already did a thing that I don't have to like, you know. So you made more than $41,000. You probably made closer to like $50,000 on this whole series, at this part of the series. So anyway, all right. So we did Kickstarter challenges. You asked, do we like this incubator project? We kind of talked about
we talked about that.
Yeah.
I looked at the rest of this. We've touched on a lot of it. So I do think, like, as we so one thing that we can get more explicit about is like, what are we going to do for the next campaign that's different? So again, this is kind of a trilogy of campaigns. We didn't know that we were doing that at first either, but then once we realized it, we kind of double down on it, and are continuing to double down on it with this third campaign, which is our March 2023 campaign, and will kind of be like the cap on all this, Kickstarter wide direct sales stuff that we're doing.
Yeah, and this series specifically, I think probably like we could. There's so little, I think, that once this campaign goes, that we're going to have left to say about this like topic of wide. But to me, I think of this as like Star Wars, like the first not anything that came out, like the original trilogy of Star Wars. It's like by the time you got to the third Star Wars, like it was just the most Star Wars. Like they didn't do new things. They took all of the great things from the previous two films. They like doubled down on it. So I almost feel like we're like, okay, like we know we're going to have a beta program. We know we're going to focus on a book. We know we're going to have X, Y, and Z other things. We know how the thing is going to line up. We know we're going to have a video, and we know we're going to take the hustle that we did on the first campaign and bring it to the third one, because we're trying to. The other thing is the Grow Wide Incubator has been like a thing for a few months, so like this is really, we're going to be like really like debuting a thing that is like, I think, pretty special. Not that the other two have not been special. Because I think that the incubator and the accelerator have been special, but like I think when you project out 5 years, like the thing that we're going to be debuting is going to be the dominant way that people make money as an author, and successful authors especially make money. I think the wide part of it is going to be like great for like building like an audience or casual readers, but like I think we both are in agreement that like this third thing that we're doing is like what we expect the next 5 years to be transitioning into. And
the whole publishing industry.
Yeah, the whole publishing industry. And not only that, but we're basically going at the end of that campaign and we're dovetailing it right into like the next launch of the accelerator. So like where we want every eyeball in publishing on it so that they all come into the accelerator, which is a thing that we learned, I think, the last campaign is like, oh, yeah. And the reason we didn't do it this campaign is like wide does not equal direct. Like whereas like the next one is going to be direct equals Kickstarter. Like, you know, it's like the correlation is so high, and we'll probably have the Kickstarter accelerator as like a reward for that campaign as well. But yeah, like I think it's just taking everything that we've done for the last two campaigns in nonfiction, and then also taking things we've learned in the fiction side, and then just making like the most book sales supercharged campaign that like we could possibly do, and make it as sustainable as possible and make it exciting as possible. And I think like it already feels easier to me. The next campaign already is like, oh, people like are desperate for this information. It feels like the Kickstarter one even not so much, because the Kickstarter one was so early when we ran that campaign that they were like, wait, what is Kickstarter? We had to do a lot of like, what is Kickstarter thing? Whereas I think the next thing that be like the direct like thing that we're doing is going to be like, oh, we're all desperate for this solution. in this, like we've all been tiptoeing around it, and like this is like I don't know. It might be someone comes in and steals our thunder before March, but like I really think that the March that like we can take literally all of the good from the last two campaigns and make like a super campaign.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anybody can really like do it like we can. I think the other thing is that, you know, like the first campaign was just like here's this platform to try. The second campaign was like here's like essentially like algorithmic optimizations to try. This one is like here's a movement to try.
Yes.
Like here's a movement that we think is going to change the whole entire indie publishing industry. So like, why don't you get on board with it? And that's something that we've been hinting at, or like we've tried to talk about in these other two campaigns, is give this really like emotionally compelling argument for why you should do Kickstarter or why you should do Wide. But I think with the direct sales book, it's like this thesis is actually like really strong as well. So I know for the next campaign, you know, we're going to streamline it to make it simpler to understand. We're choosing what we think is a very popular topic. Well, we didn't actually choose it that way. We've been planning to do the direct sales thing since like November 13th when our last one ended. Like we've been planning like, okay, March 2023 is our next one, and it's this. And yeah, I just think I think it's like it's definitely a sticky topic that's getting stickier as time kind of rolls on. I think it'll even still get more popular after our campaign. Like I just don't think we're on this, you know, direct sales precipice just yet. Kind of similar to how Kickstarter actually became more popular after our campaign, like in March. It had like a bigger moment than our campaign was. So yeah, I think it's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, and you know, I think one of the things that brings in that you think about nonfiction stuff, like the tying it to a movement, like tying the thing you're doing to a movement, and we've been, I don't want to say we've been hesitant to do that in the past. We've not completed our thesis.
Right.
Like what you've seen so far is part one of our thesis and part two of our thesis. And the next campaign is the completion of our thesis. And when somebody says, like, really, when someone says, like, what is your thesis on indie publishing? Like, we spend most of our time talking about direct sales, and we haven't even been able to talk about direct sales really because it hasn't been a part of. It hasn't been a huge. It's a little part of the incubator. Obviously, Kickstarter's direct sales, but like, there's a whole thing that we think everyone has missed that has tried to teach direct sales. People have gotten pieces of it, but like the thesis is like, we're going to come out with a thing and be like, this is what we think is this. It's step one is Kickstarter, step two is Wide, step three is this other thing, and here's how they all work together. And like the movement is like, to me, that's what really got Wannabe Press off the ground. Honestly, it's like we defined our avatar. We had like an attitude. We had like a spunk. We had like an anti-authority attitude, and like that really resonated with people, and it set us apart above a lot of other companies that were at the time, because like there was no ethos. There was no like, oh, cool, you make cool books. And to me, what the third campaign is about is really going from Monica and Russell like write these cool books and they're good teachers to like Monica and Russell are like leading a movement of humans to like revolutionize how publishing is, which sounds like, wow, like you're really full of yourself.
Yeah,
but like,
it sounds like ridiculous.
I mean, I don't know about you, but like,
true.
I was just thinking about this yesterday. Like I'm constantly taking the safe bet. Like I'm constantly like hedging my bets and like doing things in a way that is doable on a small level that will not bankrupt me and like will also not put egg on my face. And like the bankrupting part aside, like I'm sick of doing that. Like I want to do a thing and come out and say like, we are the absolute best. This is the absolute best thing you can do for your career. 100% is doing this thing, whether that is like making an awesome movie or like making a comic. But like, I am sick of playing in the in the shallow end of the pool where it's safe and kind of fun. Like I want to go to the place where like people are not there. Like people are not there and like people are scared to go there. And like we also have the technical expertise, the like reputation, everything to like make that. And so I'm very nervous to say that thing that I just said, because like, ooh, that's a lot of thing. But like, it also feels like we've spent 2 decades in publishing between the two of us. And like, we've seen everything. We know what's out there. We know like where we can like move one way or another. And we know where we're positioned in there. And like, man, I want to like, just take it. I want to take it and be like, this is the thing. It's the thing. Like, so yeah, like, and I think that this third campaign and what we have planned, like we don't even talk about, is really where it's all going to start coming to it. It probably won't all even come to a head in that campaign, but it'll be like the beginning of where the rest of this is going.
Yeah, I think it'll be so nice because like finishing this campaign, it's been good. Like I've felt some relief, but I'm very much like, man, this isn't even like the full thing. like I'm like, okay, until we're done with this March 2023 campaign, like the only thing I can see for us right now is March 2023, you know? And like everything that we're doing up until then, it's just like we just want March 2023 to be like our best campaign. And I think like Russell said, in terms of backers and backer numbers, like we're not thinking of the money piece. Like of course it's nice to make money. We're not thinking of like optimizing like prioritizing the optimization of the money piece. We are prioritizing the optimization of the backer numbers above all, because we're like, we just want as many people to like be into this as possible, because we like really believe in it. And I think the core thing that both of us believe in is that authors, have to forge their own paths, that authors need to develop financial independence from retailers and from any platform. It's not about retailers, it's just any platform. We think that we want to see authors have more control over their careers. And we're both like just so passionate about that. And so that's really where it's all coming from. And whether we're the best people to lead it, I don't know. I would just say like, sometimes the thing chooses you in many ways. Like, I don't think either of us were like, we just want to be like these leaders in independent publishing, or, I don't think either of us like honestly really care about that at all. I think we just basically for both of us, it's really that like we have been in that place where we realized that we didn't have control over our career, basically, in the way that we needed to. And we both dug ourselves out of that place. And now we're just like, we don't want anyone else to experience that. And so that's like a lot of where our passion comes from, I think, for this.
Yeah. And, I didn't think I would have a passion for it that this time last year. Like we were just like, okay, let's launch this book. We'll make a proof of concept and then we'll go our own way. And it just became a thing that like is undeniable. And we keep seeing people succeed. Like we keep seeing like over and over and over again, people implementing the systems that we have in place and like getting the freedom, some amount of freedom. And like, it's incredible to watch people be like, for the first time in my career, I feel like I have freedom, or like I've been trying to find a way to make money for 10 years. And like, this is the first thing that I've tried to like actually worked. Yeah. And like, I know we're not going to be able to get like infinitely good results for every single person. But like, I think for a specific kind of person that we're kind of developing, like we can see who's in the group, and we think there's thousands, tens of thousands of people who like think the system that exists now is broken.
Yeah.
And really don't know how to get to a system that will actually function for them. Mm-hmm. And what we really think is there are wonderful teachers. We know all or most of those wonderful teachers who work in the system and like and can help you, and like they're all wonderful and lovely, but like there is a group of people who the system is broken. Like they just can't, no matter what they do, they will never be able to connect the pieces because the system was not made for them. And like I think what we've developed is, or we're in the process of developing, is like a system that those people can utilize. And sure, people who are successful can also utilize it to like
Right.
up their thing. But like the people that I think about are the people who like I have been trying for 5 years to like make something function. And like this is the first time that the pieces all fit. And like I made more today than this campaign or in this month that I've made in the last 2 years combined, or like I can finally break even, or like whatever that piece is, like it's just like you can't see that over and over again and like not be moved to like action
Right.
on it, to not want thousands of people to feel that way and know that there's thousands of people, tens of thousands of authors who have amazing books, who are doing everything that they're told, who are like putting things into the world that like really matter, and they just keep hitting a brick wall from through no fault of their own, because there are plenty of people who that system works for, lots of people, but then there are a lot of people who it doesn't. And I don't think there's anything out there to support those people who are making amazing work and just have no, I don't want to say no chance, but just struggle to find the way to put a round peg in a square hole.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is that that project has, a lot of the limitations that we talked about earlier, where it's not like, yeah, like the blonde hot chick or whatever, like whatever that is, but for retailers, and for like some, specific genres, like it, because a lot of it is really like, if you don't write perfectly to market, because like a lot, like for the most part, if you want to be very successful at a retailer, you have to write almost perfectly to market. Like that is what is selling. So if you don't do that, then, and of course there are varying degrees of that. So as you move further away from that, your books tend to be less successful. Those people don't have anything. And then I also think there are people, because like that right to market target is always moving. So then there are people who did find a lot of success writing to market, and then the target moves on right to market, and now those people have like these huge backlists that are not doing what they could or should be on retailers as well. And so it's like, I mean, basically, like to me that system is broken. Like I don't know how else to describe a system where like through no fault of your own, like you can kind of be doing everything right, but it's like this keeping up with the it's just keeping up with other people or keeping up with trends, and like, and
Writing a book a month, or like being burned
yeah,
out because you have to write 50,000, 100,000 words every month, as long
right.
if you want to eat.
Yeah. And so like the system that we are developing is a system where that is not broken, where people who are not able to do that thing sustainably, which is like almost everyone in the publishing industry, like at least like 90% of authors are not able to do that system sustainably over the course of a decade, or even over the course of 5 years. So it's just not happening. Then this is a system that works for all those people, and like can also work for the people who are doing really well in retailers, but it's a system that works for everybody else, and will hopefully give you more time with your family, will hopefully help you restore your health, will hopefully help you find financial stability, will hopefully help you save for retirement. These are the things that are really like valuable to both of us in our personal lives right now, and things that we are trying to figure out. And so to be able to like bring that system to others is like super, super important to us.
Yeah, and we can't like we're not even really talking about it yet, but I guess this is the first time we've really talked about it
Yeah,
in any real detail. But like
it's true.
this is really the first time we've been able to talk about it, because we've been focused on other campaigns and other things, and we still have a launch later this month. So I do want to, before we get out of here, just mention that probably when you're listening to this, but like on between the 26th of August and the 5th, I think, of September.
Yeah.
Like, we are opening our Kickstarter accelerator and for basically 1 week. And we're doing that for one reason and two reasons, but really one reason, because when our accelerator launches in October, it will be $1,000. That will be a $200 jump from where it ended the last campaign, the last time in May, it was $800, and in October. Neither of us feel great about that. So we want to give you an option if you've been thinking about it and planning to get in at the $800, that you can do it one time. And so this is the one and only chance that you have to buy this at $800. Like, we're not going to be doing discounts. We're not going to be like, it will be $1,000 when it launches. When it launches in October. So and then there's a second reason. This direct sales thing that we're talking about right now, you have a chance to get in right now for a $200 upgrade. So like for $1,000, the same $1,000 people will be paying in October, you can pay $1,000 and get not only the accelerator, but also the VIP, which is the direct sales accelerator that we will be launching in March, that we literally were just talking about. Now, it's in beta. What does that mean? It means, like, it's going to be pretty wonky for a while, but like just like those people that paid $100 and now it's worth $1,000 within a year, we are going to continually raise the price on this until it's probably something like $2,000 or more dollars. So you have a chance to get into it and watch us experiment and help us direct the direction of it for $200 on top of the accelerator. And for those two reasons is why we're opening it in August, because we want input from indie authors. We saw how important it was to get that on the Kickstarter one where we did it for $100. So for $200, for $1,000, you get basically the recipe for making $1,000 back within 6 months, because you will be getting the Kickstarter accelerator. And when you run a campaign, you're not guaranteed, but based on our numbers, you were almost guaranteed to make $1,000 on your next launch. And so you're basically going to be able to pay off both of those systems at one time with one payment. And then you have the rest of your career to continue to run Kickstarters and to build the accelerator with us. I don't want to say for free. I hate it when people do that, but like, you will have already repaid your investment with one Kickstarter launch. And then you'll be able to build on that for the rest of your career. And for, like, I don't know, is there another reason why we did it besides those two reasons?
I mean, no, it's really, yeah, because it doesn't really correspond to anything else we're doing, which is maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing. Like, we have a ton of, both of us have like a ton of speaking engagements to get through in the next like 4 or 5 months. But yeah, that is the reason. So basically, with this kind of mini launch that we're doing, it's a Kickstarter accelerator at 800. It's the upgrade to the direct sales stuff, which you can't get into. Like, we're not, like, it's not like, oh, you can get into this separately. Like, you have to have that Kickstarter accelerator foundation for us to have you in this program, because you have to be familiar, or the incubator. You can be, we'll upgrade if you're in either the incubator or the Kickstarter accelerator right now. We will have a $300 option where you can upgrade into the direct sales accelerator. And that will kind of, I mean, we're not going to offer that for forever, obviously, because we need to get the content started on it. So that'll be that thing. But like, we need you to be familiar with our work, basically. So that's why we're offering it that way. So then 200, if you're new to the Kickstarter accelerator, then you can get in at 200. The upgrade is 200. And then the third thing is that we will have the Kickstarter mastermind event in Vegas. We still have 3 spots open. And we have a lot of interest in it still, and so we'll be opening up. So there'll be like a kind of like all-in price on that, where you get both the Kickstarter and incubator for free, or not for free, but on top of that still. But then we'll also, we'll open up like a payment plan, because some people ask for that too. And we'll, we're kind of doing it all together at this launch.
So you'll have the accelerator, the Accelerator 800, the accelerator, both accelerators, including the direct sales one, which, like, I cannot overstate how much we believe this will revolutionize your publishing and the publishing industry, at 1,000. And then there will be a price that we have talked about, which you will know when you're listening to this, but we don't know yet, which will include both accelerators and I think we said all of our books digital, all of our nonfiction books, not just the books, the book sales supercharged series, but all of our books, and basically everything else will be involved in that mastermind. So I honestly, like, we do not know if we're going to offer the mastermind again. So all of this, literally the whole thing, the whole stack, is limited to like this week that we're opening it, which is like the 26th until the 3rd. You will have the option to get into the Kickstarter Accelerator for the lowest price that it will be for a long time, if ever. The direct sales accelerator for literally the cheapest it will ever be. Like, it's never going to be $200 again, or at least will never be less than $200. And then the mastermind, which has all of that stuff, and we're going to go deep into your business and like, and like, I don't want to say fix it, but like, we'll give you a path forward in 2023. And I just had a conversation with someone about this the other day, and I was like, I'm not in the business of convincing you that like we're the right people for you. I'm just not. Like, we have so much stuff out there. We've been around for so long. Like, either you're like Monica and Russell, or Monica or Russell are like the right person to be to show me what the next step is, or we're not. But if we are, then like, I cannot think of a thing that is more transformative than this mastermind. Like, you really should do everything you can to be there, because I don't know if we'll ever do it again. Like, we basically have to sell out this time to do it again. Like, that was our rule. Like, if we sell it out, we'll try and do it in 2023. If we don't, like, we'll probably do it this one time and then just say, oh, awesome, that was awesome, and then bye. So yeah, like, that's the deal. Like, if you're listening to this live, it's opening in a little less than 2 weeks, a little more than 2 weeks, a little next Friday. If you're listening to this on the chat, then if we're listening to this on our podcast, then it's live now. Go do it. Go follow whatever link that we put down in the description, and join, because, like, especially if you're a nonfiction author, I cannot stress this enough. It's nonfiction one, fantasy, sci-fi, but we also have some really cool stuff for romance and thrillers that we're working on too. So like, I think this can work for any author, but I can almost guarantee, I'm not going to guarantee because that would be wrong, but like, we have seen those three things have transformative, like literally life-altering experiences in the past 6 months, 8 months. Like, also people in comics, like go now, because it will literally never be this cheap again. It just will not. And we hope to see you in there. Monica, any last words?
No, I hope this has been helpful to everyone. If you have any questions about these past 2 campaigns, or really anything for us, come join our group. I also just our group is called Advanced Kickstarter Strategies for Authors. It's on Facebook, so definitely just search it out. And then I also just want to share, if you are interested, since we did talk a lot about the direct sales stuff in our next campaign, go on over to our next campaign and sign up. There's 47 people already signed up to hear about this, and we haven't really promoted this page. We've just kind of dropped the link a little bit, so definitely sign up for that. And it's at goedgrowed.com/direct sales.
Awesome. Well, we hope to see you in our next campaign. We hope to see you in our group. We hope to see you in our Kickstarter accelerator, which one more time, I honestly cannot believe the transformational stuff that we've been able to do in the past 8 months. Like I am able to be, if you know me at all, you know I am not like, I cannot feign passion for things. Like I either hate something or love something or nothing something. So like I'm only this passionate about it because of the changes we've been able to watch people go through and the things we've been able to listen to people say about the experience going through and running their first Kickstarter. Like things that made me, a non-super emotional human, like cry or come close to crying, like listening to them.
Yeah, because it really, the one thing, I mean, for me, is just like to see someone just have like confidence in themselves and in the career. Because I think the author life and the author lifestyle can like really be down on you. So that like if I had to summarize like the one thing that the Kickstarter Accelerator can give you, it's confidence that this can still that your creativity matters in the world. And that is the thing that we see from just author after author is like, wow, like you see somebody who just, they were so down on their work, on themselves, they just were tired, and like it just like it just peps them up so much to have a successful Kickstarter campaign. So
yeah, absolutely.
It just gives them that will to keep going and to keep working at it.
And the confidence also comes from the amazing community that we have in there, which like I've had a lot of communities in my life, and like I know I've been involved in enough to know that like the one that we have for that is like very special and something that you should definitely join us in. So we hope to see you inside there. And Monica, it's been lovely to hang out with you for these last couple hours.
Yes. All right, everyone, join the Kickstarter Accelerator. We'll see you soon. Bye.